relationships. Previously, we learned that a number pattern can be called a recurrence relationship or recursion if we get the next term by doing some repeated calculation to the previous term. So the definition of a recurrence relation is a mathematical rule that uses the previous terms of a sequence to generate the next terms. Now you can get fancy and have patterns where it uses, say, 2 of the previous terms or 3 of them. Let's not go there. We're just doing patterns called first-order recurrence relationships where we just use the previous term to get the next term. So, for example, when we identify a rule being this is times 3 times 3, we're saying that you get the next term by multiplying the previous term by 3. And about the hardest bit in this is working out the notation, how we write it. Because this is term 1, this is term 2, and this is term 3. So I could say that I'd get term 3 by doing term 2 times 3. Or I could say I'd get term 4 by doing term 3 times 3. Now, this is all very easy, but I want a rule that works for any term. And the way we write any term is Tn. Any term at any position of the number line. Now, if Tn was the term that I want, then the term before it has to be 1 less than that. So Tn minus 1 is the term before Tn. And so the term before T1 is T1 minus 1, T0. And of course we could also have Tn plus 1, which is the term after Tn. So we can write symbols to represent any term. So if 9 is T1, then 6 is T, the term after Tn, T1 plus 1, that is T2. This terminology, this notation, really important, especially these two. Because to get any term, I need to do something to the term before it. To get Tn, I need to do something to Tn minus 1. So let's take this rule and try to write an overall rule. I don't want T3 or T4 or T7. I want any term, Tn. And I get any term by taking the term before it, Tn minus 1, and multiplying by 3. That's the rule of this recurrence relation pattern. So now that we know that terminology, and it will take some practice to get that into your head, you can write a sequence given that rule. A recurrence relationship has 2 parts. It's got the first term, so where you start, and the rule. How do you get the next term from the previous term? And that's really like the numbers that we did last lesson. Write the first 4 terms of the sequence with a starting value of 5, first term, and a rule. We've just made that more mathematical. Starting value of 9, and a rule is previous term take away 4. So of course you start with your first term, 9, and then use the rule to get the next term. Now you can see where sometimes, so to get tn plus 1, next one along, we use tn, the previous term. Some people will write it like this. Some people will say tn minus 1, or tn here, and we'll get tn minus 1. It does mean the same thing. So I said to find tn, we use tn minus 1, the previous term. They're saying to find the next term, tn plus 1, we use the current term, tn. It does mean the same thing. To get the next term, use the previous term. So this is our previous term. Take away 4 from it, I've got 5. To get the next term, take away 4 from it, I've got 1. To get the next term, take away 4, and so on. Remember, you can also do that on your calculator. 9 and hit enter. Then take away 4, hit enter, hit enter, hit enter. You can keep going for ages very easily. We also need to be able to write a recurrence relationship rule given a pattern. So we need the first term and the rule. Start by identifying the rule. This is, we've gone from 6 to 13 to 20, looks like an addition one. Double check, 13 minus 6, that's 7, so we added 7 to get to there, added 7 to get to there. This is an addition rule. You write your first term, that is T1 equals 6. Sometimes they put a comma after it. I don't like doing that because it looks confusing to me. I just leave a space. Then the rule. To get tn plus 1, the next term, I take tn, the current term, and I add 7. You've written the rule. First term and a rule. That will always make this pattern. This one here. It's not a subtraction, that's 300, that's 75. Look for a division. 400 divided by what would give me 100? That would be 4. 100 divided by 4, 25. So my rule here is divide by 4. Write your starting term, T1 is 400, and write your rule. Tn plus 1, the next term on from Tn, is Tn divided by 4. You've got a starting term and a rule. To check that you were right, start at 400 and hit enter, then divide by 4. I got 100, hit enter again, I got 25. You've checked and you're right.